Right. Good evening. Good evening, everybody. The time is 7 o'clock. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll go ahead and open up the Community Development Agency meeting and call it to order. The time is 7 o'clock. The Opens Meeting Act is posted on the back wall next to the agendas. This time we'll have roll call for the Community Development Agency meeting.
Seven members present, one absent, Mayor.
Okay, moving on to public hearings is item 1, resolution 2025-010, recommending the removal of the blight and substandard designation in the North Broad Street area. And we'll have our staff report from Jeff Ray.
Good evening, CDA. Jeff Ray, Interim Planning Director. So the Broad Street blight study was determined to no longer really be of use for redevelopment purposes. There's a current redevelopment project that's going on there now. The community development law changed a couple years ago. It allows you to remove an area and keep the existing projects going. So the division of taxes continue on until that original redevelopment plan that you approved expires. So everything continues on with that. This allows you to recapture that acreage. Under the community development law, you're limited to 35% of the corporate area of the city of Fremont to be declared blighted and substandard. So that frees up all of that acreage, and you can put that back into your pool to declare other areas blighted and substandard and move forward with other redevelopment projects. It's pretty simple. So the one that's there will continue on, and no new projects would then come on should you choose to remove that.
Thank you. Questions? Councilman Horner.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Ray. Roughly what percentage are we freeing up? Do you have that in your head?
I don't. I apologize. I do not have that exact number. I do know that should you move forward with removal of this and the addition of the other one that's proposed here on the agenda, you're still within that 35%. So you're well below that, and you still have a little bit of extra room should another project come along that would be necessary to utilize tax increment financing, assuming it met all of the criteria under state statute for blighted substandard.
Councilwoman Ganem.
Okay. But basically that was my question as well too, just that we have left some wiggle room of if there are other projects that should come up in other areas that we can designate it as blighted, right?
That is correct.
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
And you could go through this process in other areas to do that same thing if you needed to.
Additional questions at this point? Okay, I'll now open the public hearing on the CDA on this item.
Steve Ray, 1445 North Irving. Looks to me like the only reason you're wanting to unblight this area is so you can have that percentage back to give to the Port Authority. When you blighted that, you had a whole list of things that, oh, we got this. I would think you'd want to fix some of the problems that you outlined there. Like 23 of the properties were over 40 years old. They made a big point about that. 23 of the structures out of the 35 there were given a rating of poor, fair, dilapidated. That was 68% of that area. And I've been driving around out there. They really haven't fixed anything. Added a couple new ones. Big deal. I thought it was so you could fix up a lot of the things that they had. What you're saying is, well, we found all these discrepancies, but we need this money somewhere else. So now we're going to unblight that area, even though the things are still existing there that you said were bad. Like inadequate sidewalks. Well, okay, inadequate sidewalks. The streets weren't fit for commercial vehicle traffic. You haven't done anything to help that out. And there are people up there that use those streets for commercial traffic. So my question is, what's the point of blighting an area just so you can give some business TIF to develop there, but you're not helping the area out at all, but yet you want to go ahead and unblight because now you got another project that, oh, we're up against our TIFs. So now we're going to unblight this area, even though you really didn't do a lot to fix the things that you said was making it blighted.
Brad Yeager, 2318 East Fifth Street. I want to start with thanking some of the council members for asking the questions that have been raised already with regards to the amount of acreage that's in the area that's being unblighted in comparison to items that are coming up on the agenda next with regards to how many acres would be blighted. And not knowing for sure now what that swap is, and specifically how much of the 35% you'll be leaving open for further development in Fremont should you need blighted and substandard. I think doing this tonight without those statistics is premature. I'm personally concerned about the way TIF applications and blighting and substandard studies have been done around our community. For several times now, we have blighted specifically in order to accommodate some specific business. In this case, we blighted a whole area and studied it, as has been pointed out. One business took advantage of it, and now you'll be pulling that development opportunity away from the North Broad Street corridor, a major entryway into this community, which definitely by the study needed some rehab, and now those tools will be gone. I find that to be kind of ironic in some measures, far more of an issue relative to city entry than the Port Authority is off to the side of the freeway. So I think it's maybe premature for you to take that action. I'm also concerned that there are areas in Fremont that may not have enough left in the blighted and substandard percentage to do the work that's necessary. And I'll point out specifically in Ward 3. There's plenty of areas in Ward 3 that need residential and commercial rehab. Those areas probably could utilize that. And I realize it's been said now that, well, you could unblight some other areas if you want to blight someplace else, because it's a game of musical chairs. And that's the game that's been sort of played here with regards to somebody wants TIF, and so we move it around, and we want to move it around and accommodate all of those operations. I think it's important for us to realize what areas of Fremont truly are blighted and substandard, and we should focus on remedying those rather than just driving to a solution that gives somebody a TIF opportunity. So I would encourage you to think long and hard about whether or not you're ready to actually give up the North Corridor as a major entry point to Fremont and not allowing those business areas and open grounds to be developed with the same tools that were granted to Nebraska irrigated seeds, and whether or not there are other tools available for major industry. We certainly did that for the Costco area. You blighted farm ground that was productive. We'll be doing that in the next agenda item. We need to be looking at what we need to do for commercial and residential blighting to make sure that the city is growing and being redeveloped in areas that are necessary to the citizens of Fremont. Thank you.
Any additional comments on this item? Okay, seeing none, any additional comments from council or questions? Councilman Horner.
Just one additional question. Anybody tell me whenever the Exhibit 1 property or area was designated as a blighted area? How long ago that was?
Did you hear that? 2017.
Councilman Von Baeren.
Yeah, just, so does this mean that currently we have no interest in any redevelopment in that area?
A little bit of disadvantage because I wasn't part of that discussion, but that is my understanding that it was not foreseen that there were going to be major developments coming forward in that area to take advantage of those redevelopment tools. The community development law creates tax increment financing to support redevelopment, but not necessarily for the city to do it. It's private development that
Right,
it's incentivizing.
Understand?
So it wasn't envisioned that there would be significant new reinvestment in that area to be recaptured.
Okay, thank you.
So I have some information related to that question and some of the other questions that were asked. The area that we're taking out of the blight and substandard designation, the total acreage is 297.6 acres. But of that 297.6, 275.55 acres were actually not inside the city limits. A city can designate a blighted and substandard area outside, correct me if I'm wrong, can designate an area outside of its corporate limits as blighted and substandard. But when they do so, it's required that that number goes into the numerator when you're calculating the ratio of blighted and substandard versus your city acreage proper, if you will. And so when we were looking at, what are some areas that we might consider to take out of the blighted and substandard area? Obviously, one, that the preponderance of the acreage is outside of city limits and not an area that we've had very many inquiries about or have seen much growth in. The determination was made that this was probably the one that would make the most sense since so much of it was outside of our corporate limits. The area that is being brought in, I believe, is 386 acres, 322. And where that leaves us is that would make our ratio 31.6% would be considered blighted and substandard at that point.
Okay.
Any additional questions? If there are none, I would take a motion. Councilman Jensen,
I'll make the motion to approve resolution 2025-010.
Councilman Sukram,
I'll second.
The motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
moving on to item 2 is resolution 2025-011, recommending that the inland port area be declared blighted and substandard. Jeff Ray will have our report again.
Good evening. So I wrote this report in my former role. So I have a quick presentation that I will go through real quickly for you as well as for the public to understand a little bit of what we were doing and why we were doing that. Thank you. So real quick, I'll go through an introduction. What is the study area that was being looked at? What was the analysis and the findings that were made in that area? And then ultimately, what is the recommendation? So why do we blight an area? Under the community development law, we're allowed to find an area blighted and substandard for the purposes of doing tax increment financing. That's the only reason. There's nothing else that happens with that. There's nothing that gets recorded against the property. Simply allows you to use TIF. So the process looks like this. You declare an area blighted substandard. You do a generalized redevelopment plan followed by a project redevelopment plan that has all the project specifics with it, and then you implement TIF. It's an incentive tool that's out there for private development. Real quickly, the characteristics that we look at on the blighted side is substantial number of deteriorating structures, unsanitary and unsafe conditions, deterioration of the site. The average age of the structures is greater than 40 years of age. The economic or social liabilities in the area. There's a diversity of ownership, so it's not just benefiting one particular property owner. Is there a improper subdivision or obsolete plating that's been present? One half of the unimproved area has been inside the city limits for greater than 40 years and remains unimproved? And is there any special tax assessments? Now, these are the generalizations of what the states in this says in the state statute. There's no specific criteria that says you have to meet one, or you do have to meet at least one, but you don't have to meet all of these or any particular portion. So there's no rule on that. Those are the characteristics that were looked at. Then the substandard characteristics are fairly similar. Dilapidation and deterioration or age or obsolescence of structures, dangerous conditions which can endanger life or property due to fire or other such causes, inadequate provisions for ventilation and light and air and open space, effective unusual condition of title, the unemployment in the area is greater than 120% of the state or national average, and the per capita income is less than the statewide average. So the study area we looked at is delineated here in magenta. It's bound by property lines generally, a little bit different when you get into the state right away, but generally we tried to stick to the property lines. We also looked at where is your service area for your utilities. We wanted to focus on that area. Are there characteristics already that are there, looking at it, that have some blight and substandard? We also recognize this is undeveloped area primarily and outside the corporate limits, but it has a great potential for infill and redevelopment to take place on this particular site. So we looked at lots of characteristics, particularly the transportation. The road in particular is in fairly poor quality. Both the gravel road and the paved road that fronts onto 275. Significant degraded surface, poor drainage in that area. Ponding was noted. Areas without curb to direct storm drainage off of the roadway and into the storm sewer system as well. There's a couple of pictures from that area. Deterioration of site and other improvements were noted. Gravel, unpaved parking areas, degradation of the roadway, as well as silting in of some of the infrastructure for the storm drain system and collection of trash. So some of the potential unsafe areas we looked at is that it is in the 500-year, not in the 100, but the 500-year floodplain. And we all know that that's a statistic, right? So it's a potential, that's something that we want to definitely look at. There were noted piles of debris that can harbor vermin and cause disease to humans, as well as potential fire damage to structures. There were dilapidated structures that were noted. Then in the roadway system, there was a lack of any sidewalks for any pedestrian traffic to take place in that area. And then some drainage areas that looked like they had been potentially backed up. So there's a couple pictures of some conditions, including steep ditch really that's right there on Morningside. There was one structure here, 101 years old, significantly past the 40-year mark that the state legislature gave us. So that was all based off of the Dodge County records. So if we turn on all of the blighted and substandard characteristics in the GIS system to make sure that there's characteristics on all of the parcels, or at least on most of them, they're not all concentrated on one, we do see that they are dispersed throughout the area, that at least one characteristic of blighted and substandard are on all of the parcels that are there. So overall, the recommendation, you can see here that we found that 7 of the 12 blighted characteristics were found to be present, and 2 of the 4 substandard characteristics, or a total of 9 of the 16 total. As I mentioned earlier, there is no specific threshold. I've worked in communities where there's 3 or 4, and they've done that, and I've worked in communities where it's 14, 15, 16. So it's really up to you and how you decide to do that. But they have been found to be present on all that site, and it was recommended then that that area be declared blighted and substandard.
Thank you for that presentation. Are there any questions from council on this side?
Okay, I'll now open the public hearing on this item.
Good evening, Megan Skiles, Executive Director of the Greater Fremont Development Council. We're at 1005 East 23rd Street. I wanted to just speak to the Greater Fremont Development Council's support of blighting this area. I think a wise question was asked during the last agenda item about where the opportunity exists. And when we're looking at tools that we have as a community, it's wise to be spending those tools in the areas where there's the most strategic opportunity for us as a community. Being the economic development agency for the community, we see quite a few retention and expansion as well as new to market requests. This area is an area that has been pretty widely marketed and has generated quite a bit of interest. We have had 2 projects in the past year that we were finalist sites on. One project had a potential capital investment of 700 million and was creating 250 jobs with benefits. Another project that we were finalist on was 200 million capital investment and generating up to 500 jobs with benefits. Ultimately, we did lose both of those projects to Iowa in the final hour due to cost of development of the sites, particularly around utility and infrastructure. So it indicates to us that it makes sense to go down this road and be looking at how we can leverage every tool in the toolbox to create the most opportunity for our community. Those were missed opportunities for us, and so we wanted to start this process. So the next projects that we can come in, that's something that we can talk about and consider on a project by project basis as an incentive that we can offer to come and invest in our community. So thank you for your consideration.
Any other comments from the public? Okay, seeing none, any additional comments from council on this item? None, I would take a motion. Councilman Sukram.
Make the motion on resolution 2025-011.
Councilman Horner.
I'll second.
Cast your votes.
That motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
Now moving on to item 3 is resolution 2025-012, recommending approval of the Inland Port redevelopment plan. Go ahead.
Well, as we just went through, the area is being recommended by staff to be approved as blighted and substandard to support that area for growth for the community, as well as potential infrastructure redevelopment that would take place in the redevelopment of that entire property. I will also note that the resolution that was in your packet, staff, we made an error, carried over some previous language. So in that resolution, should you choose to pass it, we recommend that you would strike anywhere where it says reference to the updated, excuse me, to the downtown plan, and it should be reinserted then for the inland port instead of the downtown, and not an amendment.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Ray on the redevelopment, Port Authority redevelopment plan? Councilman Von Baron.
Yeah, so Jeff, when it comes to parameters, I mean, and I understand the redevelopment program is basically, it's conceptual. There really aren't hard measures here. It's talking about what's going to be done. Do we have hard measures for how this, I mean, we're going into a project literally that I would assume is going to become billions of dollars over time, with probably tens of millions of dollars of roads and infrastructure and all of those things. Do we have parameters on, and first of all, I believe the city sets those parameters, is that correct? We basically set the rules for how the Port Authority is developed.
That is correct. So it must follow your comprehensive plan, which is identified as Port Authority already. And there are specific uses that are identified in that area. Then each specific project that comes forward will have a similar public hearing process as to what we're doing here tonight, and be analyzed by staff prior, obviously, and then goes through a financial approval process and comes before you and answers what in layman's term we call the but-for rule. In other words, but-for tax increment financing, this project wouldn't actually happen. And that's where all of those details are. Then that comes before planning commission and then ultimately before you and the body for approval. And then that becomes a contract that they must build then what they state to receive that tax increment financing.
But we don't, so but as a part of the planning process, do we have direction that as a city, for example, for what the city's participation will be? For examples, we've had development suggestions in the past that the city help subsidize streets and fire hydrants and things within developments, and we've moved away from that. Do we have basic parameters for what the city will and will not be involved in as part of our development guidelines?
No, we don't have those, other than the comprehensive plan, really. It says what the general uses are, but not specifically the city would contribute X or Y or Z. It would be up to each individual project and you would negotiate those as they would come forward.
Well, and in fact, I have to thank Megan and GFDC for the conversations that we've had, because it's helped clarify some of my thinking. I guess my overall concern is that I understand this is conceptual in nature, but we're about to embark on a project. By the time this Port Authority is full developed, I'm sure it'll be billions of dollars in investment if it develops fully. Fremont will be looked to for at least, I think right now, at least a third of the utilities or the electrical, that kind of thing, with OPPD being the rest of it. My concern is that unless we have some measures for what the city is willing to do and not to do, everything becomes a negotiation. And certainly before your time, before the time most people here. But I think if you go back and look at the period of about 2010 to 2020, you can build a pretty good case that business was attracted here and the taxpayers heavily subsidized it. And I am very concerned. I mean, I understand we have business measures like median incomes and taxable property increases and all of those things which are good for business. But at the same time, we have a lot of poor and fixed income people in the city who really can't stand much more property tax pressure. And my fear is that without some clear delineation of what the city will and will not do, and I know Jeff has some thoughts on what we can do with utilities, but none of it has been solidified or codified. And I'm just very apprehensive of committing to a plan that's conceptual, and GFDC has no choice. They have to give us a conceptual plan, but we haven't done our job to set parameters for development. That's my real concern. I know that's beyond your authority, but that's a council responsibility. And I think that's a responsibility we need to take on before we move forward.
Councilman Horner.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate Paul's comments and concerns. The Port Authority has been approved. That was done in past action. It was definitely something that the city wanted to move forward with. It was a long process to get through for the state approval for that. We earned that designation as a Port Authority. And I think there's some real opportunity there for the city in the future. We know it's a long time horizon. We just heard from GFDC that this is a competitive process to a certain extent. And I think we have to go into this with our eyes wide open on that. If we think it's not, then we're going to be losing every single time. We've lost 2 projects out there to a competing community. So I think we've got to start somewhere. And if we don't start somewhere, then we're going to constantly be behind the 8 ball, and we'll never get anything done. So I just think that here's where we are. Here's a start. And I think we've got to give this some very serious consideration and move forward.
Any additional questions from council? Now open the public hearing on this item.
Brad Yeager, 2318 East Fifth Street. I'll go on record as saying formally, having been questioned in the past, I'm not a lawyer. However, there are sections of Nebraska state law that govern the requirements associated with the filing that's under your consideration currently. And I just asked whether or not you all, or whether your legal counsel has entertained the requirements of 182110 that says a redevelopment plan shall not be submitted or recommended to the governing body in which the redevelopment project is located until a general plan for development has been prepared. 182111 goes on to list the requirements of what needs to be in that plan. And I'm curious as to whether or not you can check off all of these items tonight, which are in state law, as being inherent in the content before you tonight. In particular, is there a specific site plan for the area? The number of additional public facilities or utilities that'll be required to support? You know what those are? There's a list of, I don't know, A through F items that must be contained in the development plan for your consideration and approval. I didn't go through and tick off all of these. I'm wondering whether or not you all did, or whether or not your legal counsel did, and whether all of those have been fulfilled. If they have not yet been fulfilled, then this should go back until such time as they have fulfilled all of those items in the application before you, and at which time then you could approve it. But if you don't know that tonight, it might be premature unless legal counsel can affirm for you that all of those items have been met. Thank you.
Any additional comments from the public on this item? Okay, any additional comments from council? Councilman Von Baron.
Yeah, I understand the rationale behind this. This is a big deal. And obviously this is going to be, I would guess, 1 or 2% of the state's economy once it's fully developed. The challenge for me is approving it is the easy part. It's like anything else. It's easy to sign the bank loan, but there isn't one of us would come in and commit to a project like this in our personal lives or in our business without knowing the parameters, what we're committing to, what we're willing to do, what we're not willing to do. And I feel a personal responsibility here to the taxpayers of Fremont. Everything may be fine. We could probably outline this and say, hey, that was a no-brainer. But the fact that we have not, the responsibility for how this plays out lies squarely on this city council. That's who has the authority. And I feel an obligation to the taxpayers to understand what we're going to be committing to in the future. And I just don't feel comfortable right now. All we've got is, yes, we've got the concepts. We know generally what we'd like to do, where we'd like to go. But each one of these is going to become a negotiation. And that's when we have the opportunity to lay out what we can, cannot do, what we will and will not do. I just think we're being irresponsible if we don't take advantage of that opportunity on behalf of the taxpayer.
Councilwoman Ganem.
But we do have opportunity during negotiations. Is that correct? And legal, I think we're okay with the direction we're going right now. Correct?
Yes, that's correct. This is just a general plan for that area. This isn't obligating the city to any specific project, right?
Thank you.
Okay. You know, this really goes back to 2001 when we kind of started this process with Inland Port Authority. And, you know, to kind of address some of the concerns, you know, we talked about the couple of projects that we missed out on, we're finalists for. In every one of those projects, we went into those conversations and negotiations with, the potential, tenant out there, with the city of Fremont in mind, with all stakeholders in mind. And from the utility, from the city side, and we have approached this whole site and project that way, and keeping that at the forefront. And I mean, yeah, we don't like to lose to Iowa. I mean, we want to be able to attract this to Nebraska, and to our area, and the economic impact, not only with the capital investment, but the job growth, and can have a huge impact on our area and Nebraska in the future. But with that being said, we've gone 4 years, basically, working with this. And, this is allowing an additional tool in the toolbox, to be able to make it competitive. And we talked about, we need to be competitive for this. And that still doesn't mean that we're not going to have the best interests of the city at heart, of the utility. And I can't stress that enough. That has been part of this plan from the start, and how we went about it. So that's how we will continue to go about this, even with these things in place. So I take any comments or questions from council. And I would need, we do need to make an amendment on the resolution to amend the language to take out downtown reference and include inland port authority.
Correct, and references to any amendments.
Okay. Is everybody clear on that in the resolution? Okay. I would take a motion to make that amendment. Councilman Jensen.
I'll make the motion to make the amendment as stated.
Councilman Sukram.
I'll second.
A motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
Right now, I take a motion to approve as amended. Councilman Sukram.
I'll make that motion.
Councilman Horner.
I'll second.
A motion carries 6-1, Mayor.
Okay, I would take a motion to adjourn the Community Development Agency meeting. Councilman Horner.
So moved.
Councilman Sukram.
I'll second.
A motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
We are adjourned. I'll go ahead and open up the city council regular meeting and call it to order. Time is 7:37. Opens Meeting Act is posted on the back wall next to the agendas. This time we'll have roll call for the city council regular.
7 members are present, Mayor, 1 absent.
Okay, moving on to mayor's comments this evening. Do have a couple of items tonight. First, I would just like to thank everybody who came out this morning to our groundbreaking out at John C. Fremont Park for Phase 1 improvements. As you can see up here at the front, we have pictures up of what the new amphitheater will look like out at John C. Fremont Park. We're also adding park restrooms, landscaping, and other improvements. Really exciting for our community as we again look to revitalize that north downtown part of our community. You look at our new library, the city auditorium renovations, you add in the John C. Fremont Park renovations, the new police station site, new bank site. It's really a civic center for Fremont, and this is another big part of John C. Fremont Park and the upgrades that are happening out there. So thank you all for coming out to that this morning. We had great weather, which that always helps too, right? And next thing I would like to talk about tonight, we are here tonight to honor the Fremont Area Association of Retired School Personnel and all the work and volunteer hours that they bring to our community. Was contacted by Councilwoman Ganem about having a presentation recognizing Councilman Ganem's been 28 years in school education here in Fremont, at least, maybe more than that. Was a principal here in the community, and We have a lot of volunteer hours given by our retired school personnel that give a lot back to Fremont. So I just want to recognize, we have a write-up here that was sent to me. The Fremont Area Association of Retired School Personnel wish to present this check representing 7,890 hours of volunteer time for general projects and student time in our community to the city council and mayor. These hours represent $264,236.10 that if assessed at the federal rate of $33.49 per hour. Some of the group's activities have included Christmas and Valentine gift sacks for veterans in our care facilities, delivering treats to the 22 surrounding area school staffs, providing 17 holiday dinners for the Salvation Army, bell ringing for the Salvation Army, supporting Lifehouse with food donations year-round, providing scholarships to 2 area high school seniors, and donating supplies and stuffing backpacks for area students at Presbyterian Church. During their 6 general meetings, there's also a silent auction to raise money to help support all of these projects. We enjoy supporting our community with our time and talents. And so we have with us tonight, Marta Calhoun, co-president, Mary Jane Thulin, co-president, Wanda Sampson, treasurer. So three of the officers for the Fremont Area Association of Retired School Personnel. And so they presented the city this evening based on all the volunteer hours, all the dollars, over 264,000 to represent that amount of time, which that's a lot of time. It's a lot of hours. They presented us as a city to represent that this check, it is, made out to the city. It says me, but this is made out to the city. Don't worry, this is not going to be cashed. But thank you for that. We took a picture just previously before that. And now I would like to present a proclamation to recognize your achievement and all your hours. So now, therefore, I, Joey Spellerberg, Mayor of the City of Fremont, Nebraska, do commend and acknowledge the effort and commitment that the members of the Fremont Area Association of Retired School Personnel provide to give back to the Fremont community. We salute the Fremont Area Association of Retired School Personnel members and thank them for their steadfastness in giving back to the citizens of Fremont. Would you 3 come up and accept this proclamation? Let's give them a hand. Thank you. Thank you. That's a lot of volunteer hours. Thank you. I don't know if we've ever gotten a check that big. But anyway, thank you very much for coming tonight. It was an honor to do that. That concludes my comments for this evening. We'll move on to item 1 is a motion to adopt the current agenda for the August 12th, 2025 meeting. Councilwoman Ganem.
Move to adopt the current agenda for August 12th, 2025 meeting.
Councilman Sukram.
I'll second.
Cast your votes on the agenda.
A motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
Now moving on to public hearings is item 2, resolution 2025-193, removing the blight and substandard designation from the North Broad Street area. We had staff report on this in the CDA meeting. Is there anything you'd like to add, Mr. Ray? Or
No, just if you have any additional comments.
are there any additional comments or questions from council on this item? Okay, I now open the public hearing on this item.
Brad Yerger, 2318 East Fifth Street. Since CDA approved this and recommended this to you, I'll be short. I'm curious as to whether or not any of you would have considered amending what you unblighted to have left the west side of the North Broad Street area up to 23rd Street in the zone so that those properties could have been maintained in the blighted area and have availability to resources. To the extent that you didn't want to take the stuff and leave it in the blighted area up by the north bypass and that farm ground, that would maybe make some sense. You want to swap that for Port Authority and some of that ground that's to the east of the cement plant and the like, maybe you didn't want to take those. But you could have potentially have left some of that corridor along Broad Street for those commercial properties and the intersection across from Sapp Brothers that could have been developed and were considered targets for development. And I would ask you to reconsider whether or not you want to leave some of that in before you approve on blighting this whole area.
Any additional comments from the public on this item? I'll close the public hearing. Are there any additional comments from council? If there are none, take a motion. Councilman Sukram.
I'll make a motion on resolution 2025-193.
Councilman Jensen.
And I'll second.
Cast your votes.
That motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
Item 3 is resolution 2025-194, declaring that the inland port area be blighted and substandard. Again, we've had this report in the CDA meeting. Is there any additional comments, Mr. Ray, about that? Okay. Are there any additional comments from council or questions on this item? Okay, I'll now open the public hearing on this item. Seeing no comments, I'll close the public hearing. Are there any additional comments from council? If there are none, we'll take a motion. Councilman Horner.
I'll make the motion on resolution 2025-193, removing blight and substandard designation for the North Broad Street area. Oh, sorry, read the wrong one. Resolution 2025-194, declaring the inland port area to be blighted and substandard.
Thank you. Councilman Jensen.
And I'll second.
Cast your votes.
The motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
And now item 4, resolution 2025-195, authorizing the inland port redevelopment plan. Again, this was presented at the CDA meeting. There's no additional comments from Mr. Ray. Are there any additional questions? Councilman Jensen.
Is there not an amendment we need to make here also?
Yes, sir. Thank you for that. Yes, correct. Any additional comments or questions? Councilman Horner?
One quick comment for me to educate me a little bit. We're talking a lot about development, but this is actually a redevelopment plan. That's a very small difference in the language. Can someone just explain that to me so I understand it?
Sure. So the statute requires a generalized redevelopment plan. That's the vision that's cast for that area as a development plan. It's currently being utilized as agriculture and a house and some outbuildings primarily are the uses in that area. Those would be reused and redeveloped to be more of an urban scale development with industrial developments that would be proposed under the uses that are allowed in the Port Authority. Specifically, what they're really focusing on there are computer electronic manufacturing, warehouse storage, meat processing, general food processing, intermodal facility, and public and private infrastructure to support such facilities.
So this is really in line with the comprehensive plan, all the plans that we've talked about for the Port Authority. Redevelopment meaning redeveloping away from the current uses for that land.
That's correct. Under statute, you must follow your comprehensive plan.
Gotcha. Okay. I just want to make sure there's others that have that question in their head, and I just wanted to ask that question for the clarity of it on what exactly this redevelopment plan is. Thank you.
And again, it's as council has said earlier, it's a generalized redevelopment plan, so it's creating the framework. Individual projects come forward before you revise it and amend it and add those project specifics. Member of the public read what some of those specifics are. All of those things, when they come in and you negotiate that, become part of that redevelopment plan
but this is the generalized portion of it.
Thank you. Any additional questions from the council? I'll now open the public hearing on this item.
Brad Yerger, 2318 East Fifth Street. What I'd like to follow up on something that Councilman Von Baron brought up and in relation to something that I said earlier in the CDA meeting with regards to the contents of the redevelopment plan, and in particular, whether any of you could, for the edification of the public, indicate what page and paragraph reference we will find the kind and number of additional public facilities or utilities that will be required. One of my concerns all along with this project is we were told early on that the citizens of Fremont will not pay for the Port Authority. Expansion of public facilities and utilities is of concern. When the city took on the projects for Costco's lagoons, which they were to build originally on their property, that ended up ultimately being built out by the waste treatment plant, they helped fund some of that, but then those facilities failed and those costs ended up being charged to Fremont's taxpayers for facilities that we, as I recall, when I was on council, wouldn't need for years to come. I'm concerned that we make sure with whatever statements are in the redevelopment plan that they are significant and clear enough to say the citizens of Fremont are not going to pay for any public utility infrastructure investment in that facility. They are to pay for all of it, not shared. Citizens of Fremont should not be after the fact bearing the cost of that. And if that's not in your redevelopment plan, and none of you can point to that as to, yeah, it's in this paragraph, then I think you should make sure that that gets in here before you do to protect the citizens, taxpayers of Fremont.
Megan Skiles, GFDC Executive Director, 1005 East 23rd. I just wanted to, as it's mentioned that this has been a 4-year process that we've been going through planning as a city, county, Port Authority, and GFDC all kind of in lockstep on this. We did go through a comprehensive concept for the area to help us understand the type of infrastructure that we would need. That concept was based on the type of inquiries that we were likely to receive and have historically received for that area. And so we actually hired a firm to look at the site readiness of the site and make recommendations based on the type of industries we wanted to attract as a community. And so they developed this concept that was presented and received by this group at some point last year. So it has gone in front of this group, and I think everyone in this group was also invited to participate in those discussions with our engineering firm. Additionally, I just want to kind of clarify why we can't necessarily prescribe anything too specific as far as what the cost of the infrastructure would be ahead of time. We just, when we're talking about these types of projects, these types of targets that we've identified, a lot of it is very utility specific. And so it's not responsible for us to just speculatively development way more wastewater, way more power than what we need to. And so it is very difficult to really prescribe a set formula ahead of having a project in front of us and understanding exactly what that is. There might be some things like road type infrastructure, but the utility really truly is difficult to write a formula ahead of time to understand where that TIF might come into play on the development of that. So just wanted to kind of provide some input on what that looks like. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public? Okay, I'll close the public hearing and then additional comments from council. Councilman Von Baron.
I just want to be clear. I have no argument with the thought or the planning or the preparation or the intent that has gone into planning GFDC or the Port Authority and GFDC's work. I know there's been a tremendous amount of effort, there's been a tremendous amount of discussion. And my only concern is, and I fully understand that there's no way we can anticipate needs, but the devil always arises when you get to final execution of where you want to go. And if you don't have a plan, if you don't have a thought, if you don't have some basic parameters, that's when things tend to go off the rail. Emotions get in the way, situations get in the way. Understand that. Been there, done that, made enough of those mistakes. I can vouch for that one. So my only concept, my only comment here again, so I have no quarrel with what's been done, what's being anticipated. It's just the final responsibility for this falls on the city council. And if we don't at least lay out the parameters, at least broad guidelines in advance, I just feel like we're not doing our job.
Any other comments from the council? Okay, we would need an amendment to this item to, again, replace anything related to downtown with the Inland Port Authority. And then anything else legal.
Just any references to an amendment. This is an amendment.
Correct, okay. I would take that motion, but Councilman Jensen.
I'll make the motion to make the amendment as stated.
Councilman Sukram.
I'll second.
A motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
Now I take a motion as amended. Councilman Sukram.
I'll make that motion as amended.
Councilwoman Lathrop.
Second.
Cast your votes.
A motion carries 6-1, Mayor.
Item 5 is resolution 2025-196 granting conditional approval of the Pearson subdivision replat 1 preliminary plat. It's kind of your night tonight, Jeff, right? No, you're fine. You're good.
Yeah, so we have a preliminary plat. It is down by Washington School. Those are area, they're familiar with this area. This preliminary plat is proposed to create 11 lots, 11 residential lots for some smaller residential lots that create more affordable housing. It is in line with the land use plan in the comprehensive plan for low-density residential uses. The Planning Commission voted 8-0 to approve this to you. The proposed preliminary plat satisfactory provides for being above the 1% floodplain or the 100-year floodplain. The city engineer has reviewed the plans and the drainage plan and found that those to be satisfactory. And that was recently renamed to be Pearson's subdivision replat. So with that, it's fairly simple. Come forward just as one cul-de-sac serving that area with fire protection, proper utilities, and it should be a good addition to that area. The street will be called South Rogers. That I would take any questions. And this is just a preliminary.
Thank you. Any questions from council on this preliminary plat? Pearson subdivision. Okay, not seeing any. I'll now open the public hearing on this item.
My name's Julie Anderson. I live at 410 South Nye Ave. So right triangle from where they went to development. I have a few things and I'm sorry, this is my, okay, so can I ask questions or do I have to put it as statement? So do as a statement. So I'm gonna sit here and wonder in my head these questions as a statement. You say 11 houses in that development. I took a picture of the grid from the last time. Now, again, I found out that the yellow house, it was the Christensen house, I can't remember the name, but according to the grant, that house can't be torn down for 10 years. And the gentleman is wanting to use it as his business. I don't know what that is all about, but it's a question I'm wondering in my head. Another thing goes to parking. You're talking about 11 houses that are similar. There's some things going on down in Inglewood that you can see the footings of these things with the garages, and they're gonna put the house on top, but they have a way, it's out in the country area. But my thing is parking. So you have, let's say 11 houses here, they're single driveways. I have a car in the garage, someone's car in the driveway, and say these people have 3 people over, these people have 3 people over, these people have 3 people over. There's no parking down there. And especially if you go during a school year, there's absolutely nowhere. Another thing, what's this gonna do to our taxes down there that are already not good? Our water and sewer is a huge, huge, huge one. I should have brought my phone up. I can show you on my power pole. You can see the line that every time we get at least an inch of rain, it's up over into my yard going toward my house. And I showed the developer gentleman yesterday some of the pictures from just the other day. It goes up my approach. Washington Street is completely flooded. Jackson is completely flooded. Nye is completely flooded. I understand they're talking about putting a reservoir behind the yellow house, which I feel, I have another neighbor that's there, but she has some family things going on and can't make it today, but is that going to affect, I don't know, putting the reservoir next to her property behind another property, what that's gonna do with bugs and so forth. But anyways, I know I was told it was supposed to slow down the water coming into our sewer line. But the thing is, though, it's still gonna go into our sewer line. You're putting another street with more concrete, lots more concrete. The water's gotta go somewhere. It's gonna come my way. So, let's see, now another thing, like I said, the gentleman yesterday told me, well, no, it's not 11 houses being built. The yellow house has to stay, the barn has to stay. Their footings that they were thinking about, now they're little 900 square feet houses that are gonna be on stilts, is what he's thinking now. So that's changed since the building, whatever meeting we went to last time. So already the plans have changed from that approval to this approval. It's already changed. So who's watching all this? So anyways, these are all questions I'm wondering in my head because that's my statement, not questions. Thank you.
Thanks for your time. I'm Teresa Martin. I live at 505 West Washington Street, which is right next to that property. Our fence is going to be his property and my yard. My bigger statement is last time I didn't have a lot more time to think about it than I have now since the last meeting. The retention pond is an issue. I talked to him as well yesterday. He did come around and talk to us finally about what's going to happen there. He can't build 11 houses now because, as Julie said, he has to leave the barn and the house that's sitting there. That's better. Less is more. And if you guys were to come and look at our properties, the houses that are there, my house is 77 years old.
it's an original house to the neighborhood. And he's gonna build brand new looking houses and it's gonna look really weird and out of place in our neighborhood. That's a side note, just because I told him we can't see what he sees because we see 2 houses and a barn on these properties and then my house is right there. So we have other concerns that I need to address with the Department of Utilities, which is just unique to me, which is still a concern. My water that goes across part of that lot, my water goes across his property. So we're trying to work that out. But if it were your house next to somewhere they want to build 11, 8, whatever number of houses and properties, our property taxes are probably going to go up. We've already had discussions in my family about that. That's not great. I mean, it's already gone up. Now it's going to go up more. In a neighborhood that's not on the east side of town, it's on the south side of town. And that's not great either, guys. So it's frustrating because it's going to be a lot of noise. They're going to be building houses there. I know it's a big lot and it goes back. He said he's going to start at the back and that's great for him. But we're still going to have houses being built right next to my house because these properties are going to be right next to my house. And I don't know what else. It's frustrating. It's frustrating. We're frustrated in our neighborhood for the lack of the city fixing, which again, I think is a city problem and not this man's problem with building this area. But there is a flooding problem. And my house, a couple storms ago, the 3-inch storm, it went all the way up over the sidewalk and about 6 inches into my yard. And I have a little hill, so I didn't flood my house, but it floods there like every storm like that. It goes up her yard, it goes up my yard, it floods the whole street, it floods her whole street. It's bad. It's a bad flooding situation. And you're gonna have a lot more people there, unfortunately, because that's what happens. You have at least might have 1 or 2 cars per house, and you're having at least 8, that's 16 more cars. The problem with the parking, that's gonna be an issue. And I wanted to note something I noted on the paperwork, the paperwork from last meeting. It said that people who are in that area are not allowed to go on Washington Street. And I don't know if that's a true statement because it's in the paperwork that was provided on the website. And my son sent it to me because I forgot to grab it before I came over here. And I wanted to read it. I wanted to ask, if it's your opinion, I just need that answered. And it says, no direct vehicular access, shall be permitted to West Washington Street. Does that mean that the people cannot park on this and nobody in that development can park on our street? They have to park in their own area? Because this is your paperwork.
Yeah, we could answer that after. We'll ask that
Okay,
after. you get
because
done.
if that's the parking situation become a lot less of an issue, if we could keep people from parking if they're not supposed to, that's a whole other issue because people are going to do what they do. But that's in the official paperwork from last meeting. So I just wanted to point that out. But our bigger frustration is the flooding situation and a whole bunch of houses with a whole bunch of more water and things coming into the sewer system over there, and just doesn't match our neighborhood. It's an older neighborhood. And I do thank you for your time. I just wanted to make sure that you're understanding our frustration and my house is closer than hers. So literally outside my house is my fence and his properties right now. So he said he's gonna try to be a good neighbor, and I appreciate that, but we'll see. Because things have a tendency to start and then things happen. But thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Any additional public comment?
Tim Norse, 2728 Park Place. My wife Heather and I are here kind of representing what our plans were to do down on Washington Street. I did yesterday try to go down and introduce myself to some of the neighbors, hoping to kind of ease some of their concerns. I'm not sure where some of their stuff is coming from, but I do feel it's going to be a good addition to the neighborhood. And from our side of it, we are going to work to be good neighbors. And I think that we can, if given a chance, we can bring some value to the neighborhood as well. So thanks for the opportunity tonight.
Any other comments from the public? Okay, We'll close public comment. Additional comments from council. Mr. Ray, do you want to address the
Sure, I
concern from Ms. Martin?
I got a couple comments. On the preliminary plat, when it says that there's no direct access off of Washington Street, it's referring to the driveways. The driveways are supposed to come off of the new street, not directly off of Washington Street. All of the houses that are proposed there will have their own parking and will meet the current code. So it will provide the adequate parking, so they should be able to park on site and not on to the street. It would be difficult for them to park on street with the cul-de-sac in there because it would be fairly tight. It wouldn't be a lot of room for them to be able to do that.
Councilman Von Baron.
Yeah, Jeff, just following up from another comment, water drainage and runoff is always a hot issue in Fremont. Could you comment on that? I didn't know that I understood the full question, but could you comment on
So
that?
here's the image of the preliminary plat. The drainage study has been submitted to the city engineer, to the satisfaction of the city engineer for that. So these are the 11 lots in there. On lot 1, which is this lot right here, we'll have a drainage detention basin. Show you here. So this is the drainage detention basin in the rear. And it's my understanding that this house will be a new house here. I've not been made aware that barn or any of the existing structures are going to stay. It's my understanding still that there would be 11 new homes that would be constructed here. And the utilities are public utilities to the site are adequate to serve them. So there should be adequate power, water, sanitary sewer, and it should help with the storm drainage. The detention basin is meant to take that peak off. So any new increase will be maintained there on site. So it won't increase a peak flow. That's how drainage basins work. So it meters the amount that can go out, so that will not have additional flow going off of that.
Councilman Jensen.
I just wanted to say that I spoke to Mr. Norris myself last night for a while, and I had gone out there, looked at the site, talked to one of the neighbors out there, and it's, the flooding thing, it's not exclusive to them. There's, you go to eastern North Fremont, and you get 2 inches of rain and the streets are flooded. It really isn't. And there aren't very many people building. I know he said a 900 square foot footprint, but that's just the footprint. And they're talking a master bedroom and other bedrooms on the second story. So this is going to end. There will be tall houses with having to be elevated also. But I see this as infill in an area that nobody's building this size anymore, and I welcome it. I think it'll be a good for us, and as long as we get the drainage stuff figured out right, I think we've got something decent here.
Councilman Horner.
Just want to, just being in the real estate business, seeing properties built in locations like this is really, it gives me a lot of satisfaction to see this. So I'm very much appreciate the gentleman taking the financial risk to try to get something like this done. To Mark's point, homes of this nature are not in real huge supply, and we have a lot of older home stock in the city. Seeing new homes come in is just something we need. I mean, this is definitely a basic need for Fremont. So I think we should be paying attention to this one. If it's successful, it's something that hopefully others can model and can copy. So just wanted to say that.
Councilwoman Lathrop.
I wanted to mention the fact that we just did an affordable housing study, and this fits very well with that study. And it's affordable by looking at this. And I do also need to say that this is a preliminary plan. It's not the final plan. This is preliminary. So there's still work to be done, and they're working through everything. And it's kudos to the developer that he was down there talking to you, and he's listening, I do believe. So thank you.
Any other additional comments from council? If none, I would take a motion. Councilman Jensen,
I'll make the motion to approve resolution 2025-196.
Councilman Sukram,
Oh, second that.
cast your votes.
That motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
Moving on to item 6 is ordinance 5720, allowing for increased wall signage size in the R rural district. This is first reading. Staff report.
So the CDA has been moving along, but not quite as quick as some had hoped. And UDC, what did I say? CDA.
All right. We got
Too
it.
many acronyms
We
in my
know.
head. I apologize. It's been a long day too. So the UDC, yeah, the UDC is moving along. We haven't fully adopted it yet. It's in process, as you're well aware of. So one of those things that needs to be fixed up off of our current code was this particular item to allow 2 square feet in the rural area as opposed to 1. These lots tend to be larger. Building wall sizes tend to be set back further and larger. So this made the signage very small and unreadable from the public right away. So it was one of those things that was recommended and has just stalled out, but we need to move forward on it as we have a couple projects coming forward as we're aware of that we want to be able to make sure that the signage is readable from the public right away.
Questions? Councilman Jensen.
Just a quick question. Is there any reason not to suspend rules and take this as a 3rd reading and get it done and over with tonight?
Not that I'm aware of.
Any questions from council on this? Any comments from the public? Open the public hearing. Seeing no comments, I'll close the public hearing. Are there additional comments from council? If there are none, take a motion. Councilwoman Lathrop.
I just wanted to mention that we're working really hard on getting this UDC through. Lots and lots of hours involved, and we just want to present something that's usable and practical for anybody who's using it. So, but bear with us, it's coming.
Councilman Peterson.
Yeah, and I just want to, I don't know if I need to say anything or not, but agree with Councilman over here, because I just think we need to move this to 1 reading. And time is money, and I want to respect our businesses investing a lot of money in our city. So let's we don't need to make this drag this out another 30 days. Let's just get it done tonight.
Okay. Councilman Horner.
I think the first thing you need, Mayor, in order to get that done is a motion. So I will make the motion, if there are no other comments, that we approve resolution, or I'm not sorry, not resolution, but ordinance 5720, allowing the increase in wall signage in the R district.
Councilwoman Ganem.
Second.
Cast your votes for first reading.
The motion carries 7-0, Mayor. Ordinance number 5720, an ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska, amending Exhibit B of Ordinance 5427, specifically portions of the UDC Chapter 11 zoning subdivision and site development Exhibit B, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. First reading.
Councilman Jensen.
And I'll make a motion to suspend the rules and go to 3rd and final reading on ordinance 5720.
Councilwoman Lathrop.
Second.
That motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
Final reading.
Ordinance number 5720, an ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska, amending Exhibit B of Ordinance 5427, specifically portions of the UDC Chapter 11 zoning, subdivision, and site development Exhibit B, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. Final read.
Cast your final vote for ordinance 5720. When ready.
That motion carries 7-0. Mayor, ordinance number 5720 is approved.
Item 7 is ordinance 5721, changing bar taverns from a conditional use to a permitted use in the GCDC and BP districts. Again, we'll have first reading of staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, this is a request to modify the text in section 11-50203, commercial usage to change bar and tavern from a conditional use in the GC, DC, and BP districts to a permitted use, and to change from a conditional use to a limited use in the PD district, to change the non-permitted use in a limited use in the SC district, and to change the non-permitted use to a conditional use in the LI and the GI districts. Again, the UDC is pulling along, and we're trying to amend some of these to get the language in there and get the proper uses in the right spot to be in compliance with our comprehensive plan. And this was something that we needed to move forward for some applications that we anticipate coming.
Councilman Horner.
You just mentioned it at the end there, but I just want to make it clear. There are some people that are waiting in the wings, and really what we're doing here is we're adjusting the current code so it coincides or it's going to mirror or match the upcoming code on the proposals there. And we don't want to leave these people hanging in that gap of time because it is uncertain right now how long it's going to take us to get to the final on the proposed UDC. Is that correct? Am I understanding that right?
That's absolutely correct.
Any other questions on this item?
Last comment is that this is another one that we can move forward to final reading. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Any other questions or comments from council? I'll now open the public hearing on this item. Any comments from the public on this? Seeing no comments, I'll close the public hearing. Are there any additional comments from council? If there are none, I would take a motion to hold first reading of ordinance 5721. Councilman Horner.
I will make the motion to approve ordinance 5721, hold first reading.
Councilman Sukram.
I'll second.
Cast your votes, first reading.
That motion carries 7-0, Mayor. Ordinance number 5721, an ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska, amending Exhibit B of Ordinance 5427, specifically portions of UDC Chapter 11 zoning subdivision site development Exhibit B, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. First read.
Councilwoman Ganem. Councilman Horner.
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we suspend rules and move to third reading.
Councilman Jensen.
And I will second.
Cast your votes.
That motion carries 7-0, Mayor. Ordinance number 5721, an ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska, amending Exhibit B of Ordinance 5427, specifically portions of the UDC Chapter 11 zoning subdivision site development Exhibit B, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. Final read.
Getting ready to cast your final vote here for ordinance 5721.
Motion carries 7-0, Mayor. Ordinance 5721 is approved.
Item 8 is ordinance 5722, allowing for truck, tractor, trailer sales as a conditional use in the GC, BP, LI, and GI districts. And this is first reading. There is a request to suspend rules and hold final reading. I'll have staff report on this.
Mr. Mayor, again, is the proposed change is consistent with the text in the upcoming UDC in the draft. This modifies the text in sections 11.50204 and 11.502.04 for the Fremont Municipal Code to allow truck, trailer, tractor sales as a conditional use when it is the primary use of the property in the GC, BP, LI, GI districts, and a limited use in those districts as an accessory use. Again, we've had requests from existing businesses and potential other businesses to allow for this, and that is consistent with the comprehensive plan as well as the draft UDC.
Questions? I'll open the public hearing on this item. Seeing no comments, I'll close the public hearing. If there's no additional comments from council, I would take a motion. Councilman Sukram.
I'll make a motion on ordinance 5722.
Councilman Horner.
I'll second.
Cast your votes. First reading.
That motion carries 7-0, Mayor. Ordinance number 5722, an ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska, amending Exhibit B of Ordinance 5427, specifically portions of the UDC Chapter 11 zoning subdivision site development Exhibit B, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. First read.
Councilman Jensen.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to suspend the rules and move ordinance 5722 to the third and final reading.
Councilman Sukram.
Second.
That motion carries 7-0, Mayor. Ordinance number 5722, an ordinance of the city of Fremont, Nebraska, amending Exhibit B of Ordinance 5427, specifically portions of the UDC Chapter 11 zoning subdivision and site development Exhibit B, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability, and providing an effective date. Final read.
Cast your final vote for ordinance 5722.
That motion carries 7-0, Mayor. Ordinance number 5722 is approved.
Moving on to the consent agenda, all items in the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the city council, will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or a citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda by council or staff? Seeing none, any items from the public to be removed from the consent. Seeing none, I would take a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented. Councilman Sukram.
I'll make that motion.
Councilwoman Ganem.
Second.
Cast your votes.
That motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
Moving on to new business is item 19, motion to authorize the cancellation of the December 30th, 2025 city council meeting and authorization to move the Tuesday, November 11th, 2025 meeting to Wednesday, November 12th, 2025. Staff report on this item.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, City Council, Michael Chatterson, City Clerk. This one's pretty self-explanatory. This would just be a motion to authorize moving the city council meeting scheduled for November 11th to Wednesday, November 12th, just to encourage proper observation of Veterans Day. This would also be a motion to cancel the December 30th meeting, just due to concerns for lack of quorum for that date. So I can take any questions. Otherwise, we can move forward with making that motion to authorize those two amendments to the city council schedule.
Councilman Horner.
Quick question, Michael, or maybe not you, or maybe Jody on this one. Last year, I think we did this last year, I believe. We canceled the last meeting, I think. Are there any provisions that we need to think about now to make sure there's no city business that gets left undone, or anything like that we need to consider as far as voting on and making sure that the wheels continue to turn?
Thank you. As we did last year, the presumption would be that we would have an accounts payable run to pay bills that would come before you, typically come before you on that meeting on the 30th. They will be kept separate from the ones that you would approve on the first meeting in January, so that you'll ratify those that have been paid. But then you'd have the opportunity to, approve as normal those bills for the first few weeks in January. We would only have those things that we already have a contract in place for, or they're the smaller items that are maybe purchased on a blanket purchase order. Somebody needed a new set of pliers or something and they got it at one of the local stores. That it's that kind of thing. It obviously we wouldn't be making payments on a contract you all had not approved or anything like that. We are working, staff is working with our vendors to let them know, you know, get your stuff in on early. But they do appreciate having that check run at the end of the year for those that are doing their taxes on a cash basis, of course.
And just a real quick follow on, if I may, Mayor Travis, you're fine with this. We're doing everything properly. There's nothing that we have to be concerned about as city council members.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Any other comments or questions from the council on this? Councilman Jensen.
Just a quick comment. I know I've said something before. We're doing this for a holiday. A lot of times we've got Tuesday meetings that are happening during some pretty important elections, and maybe we should make some consideration for also.
Okay, any other questions? Any comments from the public on this item?
Brad Yeager, 2318 East Fifth Street. Didn't plan on speaking on this item, but this was a problem last year. It's come up before in previous councils when you have something that's on the holiday or the day before the holiday and the council doesn't want to meet, and I can understand that. In the past, because we're dealing with claims that the city is paying, and the council actually should approve payments before remittance, not 2 weeks or more after, which is what happened last year. I would encourage you to do as other councils did in the past, and that is to schedule an abbreviated meeting for the sole purpose of paying claims. It took us 15 minutes. We scheduled it on an off day so that the claims could be paid in advance like normal, rather than to be paid after the fact, in essence, without your approval. Your approval is being given after the fact. We were admonished at the time that that couldn't and shouldn't happen, that we should make those payments after council's approval. And now last year, and now I'm listening to council say, this is okay, you can pay after and approve after, it doesn't matter. You're the fiduciary people for the city of Fremont, control the funds that taxpayers entrust for you. And I think you owe it to the taxpayers to actually ensure that the expenditures you're making have your approval in advance, not after the fact, because it's harder to take the checks back should you have a problem with any of the claims that you see. So I encourage you to schedule a special meeting, very short nature, only agenda item is to pay the claims, and pick it on a different day so that you're not on the 30th of December. You can do it earlier whenever the finance department can have them ready for you, because they'll want to issue the checks, and they're going to issue the checks. They're just going to do so without your approval.
Any other comments from the public on this item? Okay. Additional comments from council on this? Councilman Horner?
No, seeing no other comments, Mayor, I'd just make a motion that we authorize the cancellation of the December 30th, 2025 city council meeting, and the authorization move the Tuesday, November 11th, 2025 meeting to Wednesday, November 12th, 2025.
Councilman Jensen?
And I second.
Cast your votes on this item.
That motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
Item 20 is resolution 2025-198, awarding the bid for phase 1 of the John C. Fremont Park development to D.R. Anderson Constructors in the amount of $2,298,000. And we have staff report here from, I thought I saw Nick back there. It's your big day today, right?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council, Nick Hansen, Parks and Rec Director. As we were talking, it's the awarding the bid for Phase 1 for John C. Fremont Park, which is the amphitheater and the auxiliary building or the public restrooms. I love looking at these pictures. This is the stuff that excites me, obviously, moving forward with our development of John C. Fremont Park. Basically, this project aligns with our comprehensive plan, our Parks and Rec master plan, and our Fremont Creative District strategic plan. We've been working with JEO for quite some time with our master plan, and there are engineers for also the amphitheater. We really love their design. We think they did a great job. What you don't see is inside the building even, is also changing rooms and restrooms in there. So the amphitheater is made for the future of John C. Fremont Park. We really put some thought into this to make it stand out, and I think we have a pretty good amphitheater and restroom moving forward. So I'll take any questions.
Councilman Horner.
Thank you, Mayor. Nick, I'm excited about this. Maybe not quite as excited as you are. It'd be kind of hard to top, but but I just wanted to comment, standing there today and, you know, looking down the sidewalk and down through the heart of the city, down Park and everything, and just understanding how that brings that area together and all. It's, you know, these are the kind of things that we definitely should be keeping our eye on and making sure are happening. I do have one quick question just for clarity, because this was asked of me today. What we're approving today is actually the selection of a contractor. All of the spend and the money and everything has already been budgeted and approved prior, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So all we're doing today is just approving the selection of that contractor.
And
Okay.
starting
Thank
to
you.
break ground then, yes.
Yep, thank you.
Councilman Von Baron.
Yeah, Nick, what's the completion date expected to be?
Completion date is hopefully June of 2026. Trying to get it done before John C. Fremont Days. Obviously, we've waited as long as we can here with the Hispanic Festival, and I think we're going to probably break ground probably beginning of September, because we'll make a walkthrough one more time to make sure of what we still have to take down. We'll have to take a few trees down. Our forester guys will take some trees down. Parks guys will have to remove a few things out of the park, and then they'll start moving fast and quick. And hopefully, we get good weather during the winter months, because the weather can take a toll on things. So
You do remember where you live,
hey,
right?
we're hoping for a great winter.
Any other comments or questions from council? Any comments from the public on this?
Brad Yeager, 2318 East Fifth Street. No specific question. I wanted to follow up on Councilman Horner's query as to whether or not this was a budgeted item. And I guess for purposes of public clarity, the report says that this is a budget item, and it's partially funded by $400,000 of the community order financing fund, et cetera. Which you find in the budget material that you're yet to approve, which is to be discussed in the CIP plan for Thursday. So my question is, was this previously approved when you said it's already approved, Councilman Horner? Or is it to be approved on Thursday's CIP plan, which is yet to happen? And if it's the latter, I'm wondering if this isn't slightly premature and why this wasn't on the agenda after CIP approval for this year's coming budget, rather than tonight, which locks you into making sure that it will be in the budget because you already approved it. I think the approval should come on Thursday or later when the final budget is approved, because CIP discussion is on Thursday.
Any other comments from the public? Any additional comments from council? Councilman Von Baron.
Yeah, can they just address the timing question?
Yes, we also brought this, I believe, in March or April, that there would be additional funding coming through when we first started. And this is what came through after our contract, but we do have it in our funds for our CIP. So yes, it was already pre-approved even before now. So it's good to go.
Councilman Jensen?
Yeah, and I can, through Angie, that we got, every one of us got emails about this saying this grant came through and we got it. We've got this stuff. And it's a little offensive to me that people keeps coming up and saying that we don't. I mean, I guess there's a reason we've got council people and former council people.
Councilman Horner?
Well, let me just be clear. I was just trying to clarify something for a couple of questions that were asked of me, and I just want to make sure that those were clarified. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, anything else from the council? I would take a motion. Councilman Sukram.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2025-198.
Councilwoman Ganem.
Second.
Cast your votes.
That motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
All right, item 21 is this resolution 2025-201 authorizing changes to the special event application. Go ahead, Michael.
Thank you, Mayor. Mayor, City Council, Michael Chatterson, City Clerk. This is kind of a joint staff and council report here. So we've got two changes that are being made. The first one was actually proposed by Council President Def Sukram, wanting to change the mandatory event end time from 11 p.m. to midnight. There's just been kind of a demand from event organizers to kind of push that back an hour. Where we've had events ending at 11. It seems to make more financial sense for a lot of them to end at midnight. So that is the first proposed change. The second proposed change is actually from Chief Elliott in the police department, just to add some additional information into that application to kind of specify who the security personnel are going to be and just make that a little more clear to them, so they're not having to do extra legwork on their end when we're having events that have alcohol and require security. So I can take any questions.
Any comments or questions from council on this item? Councilman Horner?
Sorry, I seem to be wanting to know something about everything, but anyways, you know, I am just fine with making this change. What I am gonna suggest to the rest of the council, though, that when we change it and we say midnight, let's have it midnight. Unless there's a really, really good reason, but we just don't want every event coming to us asking us now for 1 a.m.
Councilman Von Baron?
What he said.
Councilman Jensen?
I would agree with this. I mean, if it's gonna be outside, open public, midnight is late enough. And if you want to go something later than that, there's other venues you can find.
Okay, any comments from the public on this? Okay, seeing none, any additional comments from council on this? If not, I take a motion. Councilman Sukram?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2025-201.
Councilwoman Ganem?
I second.
Cast your votes.
That motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
22 is resolution 2025-206 authorizing the interlocal agreement with Fremont Public Schools for construction, use, and maintenance of the tennis courts.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council, Travis Jaycott, City Attorney. This has been in the works for about a year now. Back in the 70s, the city and the school district entered into an agreement that provided for the city contributing to the construction of tennis courts, maintenance responsibilities, and utility payment responsibilities. And it was kind of seen as an ongoing agreement. And our office didn't think that was necessarily good for the city and the school district as a relationship moving forward. So what we decided to do is have an interlocal for the newly built tennis courts that they have. And this stipulates that the city will contribute $250,000 towards the construction of those courts. And in exchange for that payment, the courts will be open to the public other than when the school has events. It's up to the school's discretion when they'll be reserving the courts for themselves. This also eliminates any prior agreement that the city and the school has had regarding these tennis courts. And it requires the school to maintain the courts and pay for the utilities. It's really clarification of previous relationship, and I think it'll be beneficial moving forward, and I'll be happy to take any questions. And the school board, I'm sorry, the school board approved it last night.
Questions from council? Okay, any comments from the public on this item? Any additional comments from council? If there aren't, I'd take a motion to approve the interlocal agreement with Fremont Public Schools for the tennis courts. Councilman
I'll
Sukram,
make a motion to approve resolution 2025-206.
Councilwoman Lathrop,
Second.
cast your votes.
A motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
Now, item 23 is to receive the presentation entitled Understanding the Budget provided by our Finance Director, Jen Knabb.
Thank you for receiving this. I thought before we hopefully present the full draft of the budget during the next council meeting, that we arm you with just how we compare with the other first-class cities and just some also general information. We've got some newer councilmen, and I don't want to presume on who knows what. And I've certainly learned a tremendous amount over the last 2 years. So I put this together, and I hope that you find it useful. So on slide 2, you know, for yourselves and also for the general public, we do a biannual budget. We do it every 2 years. And this really allows us to plan ahead. It allows us to not just be doing audit or budget every month of the year, and allows us to really do some more long-term planning and yet continue to have transparency. We do mid-year reviews, bottoms up. We still do all of the things that you would expect a responsible city to do as it relates to our expenses. I will be continuing to do quarterly reporting on year-to-date information, and it's certainly my ability to add value a year and a half in versus if I tried to do it right after I got hired. I certainly feel like I'm adding a lot more value now than I would have last year. Second slide is our calendar. And so when we looked at this year in January, the staff really kicked off. They're the experts for their areas. They're doing independent reviews. They manage their own expenses and revenues and their capital improvement plans. And this really builds up from them. During that time, I'm preparing audit. My team is going through the audit and financial statement preparation. As soon as we finish that and issue those in April, we jump right into budget. We presented templates to our staff and had them comparing historical information, year-to-date information, looking at the last CIP, and looking how things change and, you know, move as it relates to lead times or inflation. And then we combine and calculate all of that. And then really most of June is when the department heads sit down with Jeff and Jody, go line by line, all of their expenses, their CIP items, finances in there as well. And, you know, I'm just compiling the information and trying to analyze it and look at trends. It's really the department heads and leadership that is, you know, building up this budget. For July, then we're again calculating, combining, doing continuous review. We send the first draft to the Planning Commission, which we're required to do on the CIP to make sure that everything is in line with the UDC. And we had our first study session. In August, then we are starting to prepare the state forms, linking all of the information, again, looking at roll-ups, answering questions, and we are patiently waiting for the valuation that we've not yet gotten from the county, as protests were still going on when I checked in with them, and that is due by August 20th. As soon as we get that, we will be turning around the draft budget so that we can get in front of the public in time, so we can see a draft here at the end of August. And then very quickly in September, we plan to have a special session on the 2nd to hold the first reading, then the second reading, and the third reading week after week, so that we can get the budget, have the council hopefully approve the budget, so we can then get it submitted by the 30th. And it's, so we're definitely feeling the crunch as we're double checking to make sure that everything ticks and ties and is entered and analyzed, so that we can present a good, comprehensive budget to you all here at the end of the month. The next slide is really saying just how much community engagement there is. And this ground up is really grounded in the community's vision. The comprehensive plan had broad input. There was open houses, surveys, steering committees, and it really reflects the will of the people. And it serves as our guide for the long-term development. And we keep this and the next two slides really in hand as we're looking at what the staff and leadership put into this budget. The next slide is the Parks Master Plan. Again, this was a statistically valid survey. There were pop-up events, stakeholder meetings. I filled out a survey. I just moved to town when they were gathering this information, and I appreciated coming back to this town and looking at what was important and what I'd like to see as I live here for the rest of my life and retire here. And then this was presented to you all, and you all voted on it as well. And again, it represents the will of the people, what they'd like to see for the Parks Master Plan with our values and priorities. And then, of course, from yourselves, you all, I believe, put together this slide, and we want to be good stewards, and we keep our vision and values and our mission as we're compiling this budget to make sure that what we have is in line with our UDC, is in line with our comprehensive plan, is in line with who we want to be as a city. So this next slide, we've got some sources of revenue that are very popular to talk about. Our budget last year was $248 million, and the revenue stream for property taxes was just under 7 million of that. But we've got a lot of different sources of revenue, and each one of these, many of them have their own fund. And so I've tried to organize them, and I could only get down to 6 categories. I tried to get down to 4, but it was a little too difficult to try and but we've got the taxes that we take in at the city, what we tax to bring in revenue, the local option sales tax, the city's portion of the property tax, motor vehicle taxes, gas taxes, and then we have what we bring in from outside, a tax on your mobile phone bill, or your landline, if you have a landline, that will go to support E911. We've got everything that is in the master fee schedule, the utility bills to anything that we charge for permits or licenses. We've, of course, got grants and donations. We have the opportunity to leverage debt. And then we're always looking at our interest income investments, and then making sure that every year we know what our reserves are as we approve this budget and how we're going to be using those and what we're required to keep. And then we've got, of course, everything, all of that funding supports everything that our residents rely on. And it is a tremendous amount of services. And so I won't read this one to you, but I certainly didn't really understand when I came into it just how much a city like Fremont does for its people, and all of the services that we provide for a very affordable price when I think about what I pay for internet or for my lawn to be mowed. Um, and so this is our list of services. Then we are always comparing ourselves to other communities. And at the end, there is a slide that's got all of the data. It's really too much to show on a slide, but I wanted to give you all of the information. I gathered this from the Department of Revenue. And this first one is what we talk about a lot, which is what is our levy for property tax, the city portions of the property tax, and how much do we charge for sales and use. And all of the first class cities are either charging 1.5% or they're charging 2%. And then we've got all of the levies. And when I looked at the first class cities that are around our size, which is this group, we're really on the low end. And when you look at us compared to everyone, we're also really on the low end. The next slide then, this looks at the revenue. You know, why can someone like Kearney charge less of the levy and still provide the services? And the answer is they're in Western Nebraska. Regionally, a lot of people go there that aren't residents of Kearney to do their shopping, where in areas like ourselves and even Norfolk and Columbus, there's Lincoln, there's Omaha. And so we just don't have the sales tax revenue coming in, which, you know, means we're at a disadvantage there with some of these other cities. And so, yes, you know, Kearney's levy is a little less than us, but they're bringing in 7 million more in sales tax than we are, where our entire property tax last year was a little less than 7 million. The next slide then looks at an example resident. So what does this mean for an individual living in this town? So in this example, you have someone who owns a home that is worth $250,000. They maybe make $70,000 a year. And I assumed that 38% of everything they spend is subject to sales and use tax. And in the chart at the end, I did this for every single city. So I said, if this same individual lived in every single town, how much are they paying to the city? And for Fremont, that number is $915.90 for the entire year for all of the services. And when you compared us to every single first class city, there's only 2 where it is less expensive to live. And again, that's Kearney, because Kearney has 7 million more in sales tax. And then also, I don't know what magical things are going on in Scottsbluff, but they also are a little less than us. Everyone else was more or sometimes considerably more. So when we think about, are we doing our part to keep costs low for our citizens? Yes. And frankly, I would have moved to Omaha or Lincoln or maybe, you know, here. But when I looked at where can I live inexpensively and still have the most bang for my buck out of everywhere in the country, I chose Fremont. And it is a great value, frankly. Next slide. So when I looked at the comparison, I also looked at the Municipal Equalization Fund. And when this first was created, this is for a little town like Exeter, Nebraska, where maybe they don't have enough sales tax and property tax to even pay for a city clerk and a treasurer. So they need some extra funding. But there's a big formula. It's like a page long that they go through to calculate. But the key to the formula is if you as a city choose not to levy what you're legally allowed to levy, it signals to the state that you don't need aid. And so we used to, in 2019, get about $930,000 a year. And then that dropped off significantly in 22. And, you know, this last year, as an example, the valuations of this town really went up. And we looked at our budget and we said, you know what? When we did our 2-year budget last time, we said we were going to need 6.9 million. We're still just going to stick with that 6.9 million, which meant that we lowered the levy. And so that kicked us out. So in 25, my analysis on all the cities all that data is based on 2024. So you'll see in that the 135 that we got in 24, but we have gotten an email from them that based on this 2025, we're now eligible for 0. So we have lost that. I've put on here the cities that receive less than us or the same. And many of those, they're getting, 22 million, 5 million more overall, 8 million more. Or they're smaller than us. And when you look at the revenues that they take in per household, we're at 1,600 per household. And you can see how much they have to spend per each household in Blair, Seward, York, Ogallala. And again, at the end of the deck, you can see what it is for every city. Next slide. Here it is. So I color coded where someone's getting more revenue than we are, where their levy is higher, where their tax rate is higher, where they're getting more aid. That's where you see all the orange. We're in yellow. And then the taxes to the city and how much revenue per household is estimated there as well. And again, the data comes from the Department of Revenue. I did make an assumption that based on our own utility folks of, how many people we have in the city versus how many we have paying water and sewer for our residential. And I, use that same rate, which, might be a little different city to city, but I wanted to, keep it very uniform so that we could do a good comparison. And then the last slide is our property taxes. So we charge our residents for 2025 0.248 for every $100 value for their home. And that is 16% of the property taxes that individuals pay. You can see the county is 14%, school district is 66%. I do see a lot of confusion, and I don't know that I had really thought about it before I took this job of, the county's role doing the valuations. And if you go to their website, they say we don't set the levy. And, our needs as a city of what kind of revenue we want and need to have to provide our services divided by that valuation to come up with a levy. So our part is how much revenue do we need in the budget? Their part is the valuations. And there you go. So I hope this is helpful. I hope that this provides you with some information and of just what our revenue sources are, what services we provide, and then, how we compare to other first-class cities so that when you are evaluating the budget that we provide you here later in the month, that hopefully we present something that you can vote on. And I'm available for any questions.
Councilman Horner.
Thank you, Mayor. Jennifer, I'm just going to be real quick. Just thank you for putting this together. We each of us might know the little disparate parts of these things, but when you see it all flow together like this, it really helps out. And on that last slide, I think education is key for people. I get a lot of questions about why are my property taxes going up, and why is the city charging me so much? But they need to understand, and that's something I don't think people really understand, is that the city is a pretty small piece of this, relatively speaking. So thank you again for doing this. Appreciate it.
Yep. Councilwoman Ganem.
I could say ditto, but I wanted to say thank you for your time and effort in providing this to all of us. And I think it does help clarify some areas, where does our property taxes? Why does the city spend so much money? If only the city would cut spending. And so I often get that, and it's geared toward the city, probably because I'm a city council, but it's interesting and appreciate the way you presented it. And thank you again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Councilman Sukram.
I just want to thank you for the presentation. I won't get too detailed.
You're welcome.
Councilwoman Lathrop.
I'm basically gonna say the same thing. You did a great job on this
Thanks.
presentation. I know that you are buried, getting ready for all of the budget items. And you took extra time to get this ready for us, and that is greatly appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think the community will appreciate seeing some of this as well.
Thanks.
So thank you.
Councilman Von Baron.
I'll join the fan club because I appreciate the time that you took to walk me through the reserves question. Because
Sure,
I was
absolutely.
turning a very simple question into something fairly complicated. I appreciated that. The other thing I think that's worth pointing out, and I really appreciate Mayor Spellberg's discipline in levy rates. It's one thing to pass up revenue that you could have from taxes. It's another to pass up the double dip that you could have by getting that revenue plus some additional state aid by charging. So I appreciate that. Just one comment back on your budget process calendar.
Sure.
And I talked briefly with Mayor Spellberg about this, but the initial thinking starts back in January, which is absolutely the way it should be, where the departments start to set their priorities. The council doesn't really get involved in this even preliminarily till July, and definitely not till August. And by then we're faced with the deadlines. And I feel personally like I'm cramming for a final exam.
Me too, brother.
If you want to give me that final exam, I'm going to fall flat on my face and fail it because I'm not going to understand. My point is, I think there's a way that we could start. For example, staff begins independent review and outlook of department budgets, CIP. That's preliminary. We understand that. There's no obligation, but it would be very helpful to begin looping and I know this isn't your purview and this isn't your decision, but just a chance to mention to the council, it would be helpful, I think, to let the council in on some of these preliminary discussions. Okay, so for example, in January, what is staff thinking? What are the general things? Are we looking at some big expenses? Are we going to be okay? Are we going to be just general spitballing? You know, the stuff that you do in conversations, and just loop us in through the year. The way the process is designed right now, we don't come in until about 7 months into the process for a first glimpse. We get a second glimpse about 8 months in, and then it's showtime. So, if you want to quiz me on the budget, I will fail summarily. It would be helpful to maybe make this more of a process through the year, piece by piece, bit by bit. I think it would help the council greatly. Just FYI. Thanks.
Councilman Jensen.
The only thing I'll add, I'll just ask, is this going to be available to the public anywhere besides in the archives of tonight's meeting? Is this is something I think I'd kind of like to see this at every one of the high schools. They'd just some very basic of what this looks like, what it takes to run a city.
I mean, it's there out there for the public to see, and I'm happy to send it to you, and you can print it out and pass it out as much as you want.
Councilman Peterson.
And I want to echo that also. Fremont is indeed fortunate to have you on staff. This is the best presentation I've ever seen, and it really gives me a good perspective on how things work. And I'm just, I know it takes so much work. So thank you for that. But it also gives me some perspective when someone, like you mentioned, wanting to live here. And, I read those little things, best cities to retire in. It's okay, fine. But the thing is, not only are we balancing our working on our budget and staying within our budget, not just spending money because it's there, but we also have access to quality healthcare, which is a big thing when you get a little older. So, I mean, or even if you're not older, but it is important. And a lot of those, you mentioned Scotts Bluff, that's on this list because who knows where they find a good hospital, right? So, I mean, we are just within minutes of anything you want to do, so. No, I think but yeah, I really like how you did this, and even a not really a numbers guy like me can kind of put it together. So that's good. So appreciate you very much.
Yeah, it's a great town.
It is. Thank you. I agree.
Jody, did you have something you wanted to say?
I just wanted to remind Councilmember Von Baron that Jeff and I extended an invitation to council members to come in and visit with us about the plans for the budget, some broad strokes, the big projects, some idea of where your feelings were related to COLA increases. We had those discussions back in April. And for the idea that council's not engaged in the process, we tried, and frankly, we got pretty limited feedback when we asked questions like, what do you think is an important aspect of our budget? What should we be looking for? Do you have any special projects? And so I'm not quite sure how much more we can do to try and get council involved in the process through conversations, maybe not a big public event, thinking that perhaps people might speak more freely, in smaller conversations. And staff did do that. This version of the budget, as well as the last round of budgets, we did sit down and ask council members their thoughts on this subject. So to say that you don't get a look at it until seven months in, the information that you provided, the responses that you gave us to our questions, we did take note of and kept that in mind as we were working with the staff to build the budget.
Or just respond to that briefly. I wasn't implying that we were left out. That was not my intent at all. My only point was it helps me to be able to see it through the staff's eyes. And if we could watch kind of over your shoulder, for example, through the process, that's all I'm saying. Because my questions I know what my questions are, but my questions frankly aren't usually very smart. and that's why I rely on staff expertise and staff just saying, hey, here's what we're thinking and those kinds of things. So we were certainly not left out of it. I just think it would be helpful to bits and pieces let us see this through your eyes as we go through.
Are there any comments from the public on this item?
Brad Yerger, 2318 East Fifth Street. I'd like to thank the finance director for the materials that were provided tonight as well. It's always informative. These are similar kind of materials that we covered when I first came on council as a new council member. So it's important to understand how this all works. And I'm sure everybody can probably agree with Councilman Von Baeren that if you got tested on the budget, everybody would probably fail, except maybe the finance director.
Okay, I don't fail on that.
But I do have a few comments that I guess I'd like to make based on what I listened to tonight and what I've observed over the course of my tenure as on council and even years prior to that when I was still monitoring what was going on in the city and the years that I have monitored since. And one of the things that I observed and I remember distinctly in the last cycle, the first cycle that Mayor Spellerberg that you came on, we were very late in the year getting that budget approved, up against the wall, if you will, to get it approved. And I distinctly remember you saying to us as council members, that won't happen. We'll get it done earlier. We won't push us to the end of the deadline where you don't have time to discuss and review. But yet, here we are. We had a first taste of the CIP on July 8th. 30 days have passed. You had no more discussion in public forum. The budget now, it sounds like from what the finance director said, won't be officially discussed in completion until the next full council meeting, and you're going to have a CIP discussion on Thursday. I can recall when I was on council, and I know some may be critical of the fact that I refer to when I was on council, but nevertheless, council had an opportunity to weigh in on the CIP. As a matter of fact, we put things on a board and we actually voted on the priorities that as council members representing the citizenry of Fremont, we thought would be the ones that they would want. And they, guess what? They didn't match necessarily what the staff had laid out for the highest priorities or the like. And we had to make modifications to the CIP timing. Not that we necessarily took things out, but we did add some things in. As I recall, we did take some out.
but we had input as council members in what those prioritizations and what those items were going to be. I sensed that you didn't have that. One of the things as a spectator now in the public that I'm interested in is that you don't have special meetings to discuss the budget. You could have all through the month of July. You could have up through the Thursday of August. You can put them in your agenda anytime you want. And I was hopeful that based on Councilman Horner's discussion, that those would actually transpire. I think Councilman Ganem and Councilman Von Baron also agreed that more meetings would be good. But more than 30 days have passed and you haven't had any. That means the public hasn't had any. And when I hear that, well, you had some opportunities to discuss things directly with staff, yes, but the public doesn't get to hear those things. So we're blind until this thing comes out essentially in August. That's not fair to the public that you represent. If we have input that you need to hear from us, you need to be earlier in the process. I would challenge you that as council members and mayor, you should operate more like a corporate. I was in corporate budgets for a number of years for a major company. I can tell you, corporate didn't say, start at the bottom, figure out what you want to do, give us the stuff on the last day, and we'll accept it and vote it in. No, corporate said what the guidelines were. Corporate set the objectives and the goals. And then you fulfilled the task to bring that up, and then likely they were modified. We don't do that in city government, apparently. I challenge you that says, I think you should. I think the mayor and the council needs to be much more proactive in the beginning of the year, just as was suggested by Councilmember Von Baron. When you get a preliminary CIP, council should be involved. When you have templates that are going out that apparently give guidance as to what you might do for expenses and staffing and other kinds of things, and you don't have those apparently. I didn't get them. I asked. I turned in a public records request to see what those were, and I got zero. I assume that a lot of this conversation must be oral, because in response to public records, legal gave me next to nothing. So if you're having these meetings, having questions, sending out guidance, all of those kinds of things, they must not be documented, or else you're not giving up the documentation that's requested. I think that does a disservice to the public. This should be a transparent process. All of you should be engaged, and you should help the people understand what you're understanding on their behalf when you're spending multi-millions of dollars. And the public has a right to know just as much as you do. So I'd offer that you schedule this earlier in the year and do the scheduling yourself.
Any other comments from the public? There are not, take a motion to receive the presentation. Councilman Jensen.
I'll make the motion to receive the understanding the budget presentation.
Councilman Sukram.
Second.
That motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
Okay, next item 24 is an executive session for contract and labor negotiations. So you all have the language. I would need a motion to go into executive session. So one of you want to please make that motion? Councilman Jensen.
I move to go into executive session for the purpose of contract and labor negotiation and for the further reason that the executive session is necessary for the protection of the public interest.
Councilman Horner.
I second that motion.
Motion has been made and seconded to go into executive session for the purpose of contract and labor negotiations for the further reason that the executive session is necessary for the protection of the public interest. Is there any discussion? Pending motion is to go into executive session for the purpose of contract and labor negotiations for the further reason that the executive session is necessary for the protection of the public interest. Cast your votes.
That motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
Motion to go in executive session for the purpose of contract and labor negotiations for the further reason that the executive session is necessary for the protection of the public interest has been approved. Discussion will be limited to contract and labor negotiations. No official actions or votes will be taken during executive session. We're headed back to the conference room. Yep. Councilman Jensen,
I make the motion to come out of executive session.
Councilman Sukram,
Second.
A motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
take a motion to adjourn. Councilman Jensen,
Make the motion to adjourn.
Councilman Horner,
I happily second.
cast your votes.
That motion carries 7-0, Mayor.
We are adjourned. And Michael.